V10 Dodge made from 1994 to 2003 that no one even remembers? Why was it made? Where did it start? And what was the point of it? What was it even in? And, well, let's get into it. Starting with the engine name. This engine was called the Magnum V10, which was part of the Magnum engine lineup of pushrod V engines, used from 1964 to 2003. The Magnum engines were very common and used in almost every Chrysler product throughout its runtime. Most common, however, were the 318s, the 5.2 liter, and the 360 5.9, both of which were great engines used for a long time and were pretty commonly modified, actually. Both were used in Dodge pickups, which is the main topic of this video. The 318 was used in the Rams from 1967 to about 2001. The 360 was used in the Rams through 1967 through the second gen of Dodge Ram up into the third gen about 2003, where they removed the engines and replaced them with the 5.7 Hemi, which is by far superior. I fucking love the 5.7. Then when we get to the Ram 2500s and the 3500s, there wasn't a whole lot of options besides the 5.9, and I think it was the 6.7 Cummins? I might be wrong with that, but I think it's 6.7, which was later than that. But for the most part, it was the 5.9 and the 360. There wasn't really a whole lot of options. I'm sure they had a big block somewhere in there, and I'm just not seeing it. I did the research for this video at like 2 o'clock in the morning, which is currently 1:32 while I'm making this video, and I made this script like 3 weeks ago, and I'm finally getting to it. So I'm sure there was something that I missed somewhere along the line. But for the most part, really was the 5.9 Cummins. That was the top of the line, and it still is. When you think of a Dodge Ram, you think of a big old diesel pickup. Alright? You think of the Cummins. And so, I mean, it's a great engine, still is. It's amazing. But in 1993, Dodge noticed, they were like, man, we really need a new engine for this 2500 and 3500 lineup. But what do we do? Some random guy in the back was probably like, what if we just took the 360 and then just add like 2 more cylinders to it? You fucking genius! That's a great idea! Let's do that! So that's basically what they did. They took a 360 block, extended the stroke by about 2 millimeters, and just stuck 2 more cylinders on it, birthing the Magnum V10. Dodge introduced this 8-liter V10 to the 2500 and 3500 engine lineup for the 1994 model year. At the time, the engine produced far more torque than any of its competitor gasoline. Wait, what? The engine produced... Oh yeah, never mind. Originally producing 300 horsepower and 450 foot-pounds of torque, which is, by that time, 1994, that's quite a bit of power. I mean... that's quite a bit of power, still. So, the V10's performance was superior to that of the 5.9 Cummins. However, the V10 could not match the Cummins' fuel economy potential, nor did its However, the V10 could not match the Cummins' fuel economy potential, nor did its torque curve peak nearly as early. For the 2001 model year, the 5.9 Cummins passed the V10 in torque ratings, while the V10 continued to offer significantly higher horsepower. The V10 is often identified as the 5.9 Magnum 360, the 360 V8 I talked about earlier, with 2 additional cylinders. However, that is kind of a misleading description. Although the engine designs are almost exactly the same and very similar in almost every way, they are different engines. Of course, they're different engines. One has 2 more cylinders, but they're actually different engines in the way they are designed. They both do share the 4-inch cylinder bore, so you probably could use the same pistons between the two. I'm sure they would fit, but it does have a slightly larger bore, like what I talked about earlier, which is about 2 millimeters. So it's not, stroke. The stroke is about 2 millimeters longer. So not by a lot, but by just enough to make them slightly different in that aspect as well. Magnum V10 is not to be confused with the 8-liter Viper V10, which I know is almost the exact same. As you would expect they would be the exact same. They sound the same. It's an 8-liter V10, but they offered it in a pickup. So, like what some people do. I mean, you've got the Vortex in the Chevys is almost the exact same as an LS in the Corvettes, basically just with a different cam and head. But however, that's not the same with these. They're completely different. The engines are completely different. The truck engine did not produce nearly as much horsepower as the original V10, although it did surpass it in torque. It made quite a bit more torque than the original Viper V10. The engine was ultimately retired following the 2003 year model for reasons that included the engine's relatively poor fuel economy. I mean, I'm not surprised. It's an 8-liter V10. It's not going to get the same, fuel economy, especially as a 5.9-liter inline-6 turbo diesel. Everyone knows that turbo diesels are actually really good on gas. That's why there's a lot of VWs and stuff like that that are made with a turbo diesel, because they get amazing fuel economy, especially out of a small package. So, of course, it was going to end up getting beaten out by that. But I personally really love the V10. I think it's a super unique engine. And they weren't made for very long, just about 6 years. So, I really like them. I think there's a ton of potential for those engines. But they were just such a niche thing, especially now that people just don't really modify them. Now, of course, there are some people who built them, such as this one. There are people who have built this engine making around 500 wheel horsepower, which is, pretty good. Makes 200 more horsepower than the factory engine. That's just with a simple Pro Charger setup. I bet the engine's capable of way more than that. I mean, if the engines really are like a 360, just put better pistons and shit in them, throw like a twin turbo setup on them, and I bet, like a bigger cam, I bet those things would rip if people actually gave them enough time out of the day to make them something really cool. Now, of course, if you do have one of these, it's a V10, so it's gonna sound like a V10. I really want one, honestly, to put into a 1500 and turn into a drift truck. Now, of course, I don't make nearly enough money to be doing that, but as much as I would love to, I mean, come on, that you can't say that wouldn't be really cool to have a V10 powered Dodge Ram 1500 two-door short bed slammed to the ground and swinging that around a track. You can't tell me that wouldn't be the most badass drift setup on the track. People are gonna be like, what the fuck is in that thing? Yeah, buddy, it's a V10. The goddamn Dodge V10. A Viper? No, you fucking buffoon! Fuck! Sorry, I scared my cat. Anyways, that's about really all I have to say. The engine was around for about 6 years. It didn't get a very long lifespan, and I'm really not surprised. If it didn't die in 2001, it most certainly would have died in 2008 with the market crash and everything like that. But I really do wish this engine had some more love and was, a little more popular than what it is right now, because I think the engine could have been way more than what people, I mean, it's a second-gen pickup, especially the 2500s. All the 5.9 Cummins are, picked up by fucking wannabe hillbilly cowboys that wear high-top fucking sneakers instead of boots. No, that's kind of far, but, it's picked up by people who don't use the truck for towing it and just don't use it. Now, of course, there are a lot of people who own those trucks to tow, but you also just see a lot of kids be like, yeah, I wanted the Cummins because it's cooler, and because of whatever. And it's just, I think that's kind of silly. But that means the V10s are relatively cheap. You can still pick those up for $2,000 on the cheapest, probably not running. But you can still find them fairly cheap. And, hey, I'll take it. If I can get the money to go out there and buy one day and do something with those and make it really a fun car. Dude, even taking that thing off-road and lifting it and, just make it an off-road beater, that thing would do perfect. You have a lot of torque that you can throw around. And I think they even came with a manual option, if I'm not mistaken. Which, even better. If it came with a manual option, manual, 4-wheel drive, V10 with, what did I say, 400 and something horsepower? 400 and something foot-pounds of torque. You could be able to take that thing off-road and you'd have a lot of fun with it. And I just, that's what I think. I think those engines are super fun. But that's really all I have to say. I hope you guys all enjoyed this engine. This engine, history lesson, if you will. And if there's any other engines or anything you want me to, look into and go over, just let me know down in the comments below. Probably not that anyone's going to see this video, let's be honest. But, that's about it. Thank you all again for watching, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. See ya. Buddy, what do you have to tell the people? If they enjoyed the video, what do they got to do? Alright, you heard my three-legged cat. He told you to like and subscribe. And if you don't do that, you's a bitch.